So everyone's talking about sustainability, but we really need to address what this means for businesses. First and foremost, sustainability should be about business survival and success, as well as the environment. These two objectives should go hand in hand. A business that looks closely at its operational behaviours can save cost and reduce its impact on the environment at the same time. It's important not to think in silos, but across the whole business operation. And I think it's important to remember, it's not always about making big changes. Small changes can add up and make a big difference. Clearly, business mobility is a major factor in contributing to carbon emissions. There's no escaping the fact that travel is a significant contributor. Equally, we appreciate and we understand the importance of mobility to businesses. In fact, our business at Europcar is to understand the business of mobility. And so it's about being smarter about your travel, as well as transitioning to more sustainable models of transport. For those that can, the hybrid working model is a great example, and it's certainly changing some aspects of business travel, reducing general commuting, as well as encouraging more efficient use of time for meetings. But the reality is that people and goods still need to get from A to B, and therefore businesses need to think about how this happens. Some recent Europcar research that we did found that businesses are looking at a number of sustainability targets relating to mobility. Many businesses are looking at increasing their use of other forms of mobility, with 28% aiming to increase their fully electric fleet, and a quarter have a goal to reduce their petrol or diesel fleet. In addition, with staff increasingly using their own vehicles or grey fleet, many organisations are applying controls to manage the environmental impact in this area. Just under half of organisations are placing limits on vehicle emissions and vehicle age, whilst looking at incentives for their staff to use hybrids or full electric vehicles. Plus, and this is a positive side of progression, we found that firms are investing in sustainable vehicle options. So nearly half of all businesses surveyed already have hybrid vehicles in their fleet, and the same number of organisations also have fully electric vehicles in their fleet. So whilst it's clear that each business and each sector has its own demands and needs, and I guess what I'm really careful to do as well is to not lecture here, but it is clear from our research that every business and every sector has the opportunity for positive change. So it's about looking at your business, understanding your ways of working, and doing what you can to move forward in a more carbon-friendly direction. With the 2030 deadline for the ban on sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles rapidly approaching, there are challenges which a business faces in transitioning to a greener fleet. But there are challenges that can be overcome. So, cost. Cost is definitely an issue. The cost of vehicles, the increasing cost of energy, the cost of change, the time needed to deliver that change. But I think it's really important for folk to consider the total cost of ownership and not just the acquisition price and the energy headlines, as there are financial benefits, real financial benefits to having EVs. Everyone talks about charging being a barrier, and certainly the infrastructure is not yet wide enough to support the fast growing car park of electric vehicles. But for many motorists, it doesn't need to be a barrier. For example, someone who is largely doing city driving could be well served by a mixture of home, office, and occasional on-the-go charging. Those doing longer journeys regularly will be more dependent on the infrastructure improving. And there is progress being made. There are some really progressive organisations out there who are trying to push forward the mass development of charging structure. Another barrier to change, or another factor, has been supply. It's been one of the key things holding back new vehicle sales for several years. And unfortunately, it does continue to affect the market, especially new and hybrid electric vehicles. And in fact, it was cited by nearly a third of respondents in our survey as being, the biggest barrier. But supply is returning through a range of new vehicle manufacturers releasing a great range of EVs, but also with the established vehicle manufacturers stepping up their game. And the great thing is that Europcar are able to access both the emerging and the established vehicle manufacturer markets to help bring EVs to UK motorists. But I guess, and perhaps this is more philosophically, the big thing with change is of course winning hearts and minds and committing to pushing through the barriers to deliver the change. Fair concerns, and suggest there needs to be much more education and understanding around what is fit for purpose for drivers for the majority of time. Personally, I'm also conscious that as the mainstream media start to pick up on the transition to EVs, there is a more sensationalist view of these challenges. There are challenges, but they can be overcome. It's a progressive picture, and I'd like the narrative to be around driving positive change and reflecting on what we have done and what's to come, rather than what we haven't done as an industry. I'd like us to be looked upon in the history books as a generation that made a really positive impact to the industry, and we still have an opportunity to do that. Businesses need to consider how they cope with the introduction of clean air and low emission zones. Certainly there are considerations that businesses need to take into account. We find it's clear that people understand the purpose of clean air and low emission zones, but whether they were prepared for the changes is another question. I'd like to think, as I sit here now, that understanding of the clean air and ultra low zones has changed. The number of zones has increased and awareness has increased about them. But with economic pressures, can every business really afford to upgrade their fleet? I think the key for now is for those responsible for business vehicles, whether it's just one or two or hundreds, to truly understand what is the right fit for their business right now. Businesses are keen to try before they buy, to really understand what electric motoring means in real-world conditions. They are keen to ensure the transition to zero doesn't have any short to negative impact on their operation and business cost. For all these reasons, making a steady switch, moving from older, higher polluting vehicles to low emissions and eventually to zero emissions is a common sense approach being adopted by many businesses. The time is now. We need to be brave, we need to lean into the change, we need to be the ones that make it happen. So, where are Europcar on this sustainability journey? I think we're taking it really importantly and giving it the focus it needs. The group is taking a very holistic view, making changes across the entire business. And this has already led to significant reduction in emissions and has inspired confidence to make further green changes in the future. A real driving force behind Europcar's focus on maximising carbon reduction is our One Sustainable Fleet programme. With a key target to have 20% of our global fleet as green vehicles by the end of 2024. And our carbon reduction objectives have been approved by the Science Based Targets initiatives, which is really important. It gives it really external credibility. And furthermore, we were recognised by the CDP in Europe as being gold standard of environmental reporting. And significant investment is also being made in our infrastructure. We already have more than 80 EV charge points across Europcar's UK network, with a further 120 to be added this year. So whilst there is more to do, and in fact that's always going to be a case in an environmentally progressive society, I'm really proud of what we've done. I'm really proud of the commitment we have made to drive further change. And we are on hand to help your business on your own transition journey. So let's go make lasting change together.